Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show, episode 197. What should we do for our 200th episode?
Something exactly the same as we've done for 199. No,
Okay,
I don't
so
know.
a
We should do
mailbag
something cool.
or
yeah, T-shirt with coffee mug.
coffee mug.
Do you still got some storage in our warehouse of merchandise?
Probably, yeah. We could do a T-shirt cannon across the world.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jordan. Silent PH in the middle. I guess I should do the intro. And we have Lucian here, my co-host in crime, as we chart the rapid and uneven waters that is Dungeons & Dragons news and more. And the word of the week is new D&D starter set. That was not
Was it
leaked.
confirmed?
Well, it's not leaked and it's not confirmed, I guess, but it is it's a Hasbro shareholder video to be like, our 2022 is looking fantastic. And in that video, so it's from Hasbro, and in that video is a picture of this new starter set, if that makes sense.
Makes total sense. Yeah.
So there you go. It's called Dragons of Shipwreck Isle, and
Cool artwork.
I was wondering, the second starter set made a lot of sense, Dragons of Icespire Peak, because it introduced the really easy version of D&D. So your friends that are like, oh, I don't really know or want to play, it's like, here, play this sidekick character, and then later you could upgrade them, and they had some new mechanics. We literally don't know anything about this, but it makes me wonder if the starter set is selling a lot more than I thought. And so, because I don't know anyone buying the starter set, but everybody I know that plays D&D is already playing D&D. So it doesn't make sense to buy the starter set. That being said, I wonder if those are a hot item, and so it made sense for them to make yet a third one, just in case.
Yeah. I think it's one of those, if you're in advertising products, it's one of those things that makes a lot of sense, because you're going to say, if somebody doesn't know Dungeons & Dragons, which to me and you sounds like could possibly be nobody that doesn't know Dungeons & Dragons.
Go back into your
but
rock.
We're in the bubble, right? We're in the bubble. And they're thinking about those people that walk by those store aisles and they say, oh, that's right, I've heard my friend or I've heard my kid or I've heard my brother talk about Dungeons & Dragons. Maybe I want to get them a gift. Or maybe they've been talking about trying it, but they haven't yet, and I know that. The thing that I'm going to draw to is not how do I pick one of the 15 books, and I don't know anything. But if it says big old giant starter set on it, that's an easy pickup. And you just well, hey, I'll grab that for my kid. They can have the starter set, and they can play this D&D thing that I've heard of that I don't really know much about or haven't paid attention to. So I think I've seen a lot of the other, Paizo's been doing a lot of those kinds of things too. And I think there are other, I think it's Modifius and Free League to put out these starter sets to get people interested in their TRPG before diving into the full library of full book stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's what's happening.
I wonder if in the market research, they're just for every 1.4 starter sets we sell 2 players' handbooks automatically. You know, because it's this person is introduce it to their friends, and then they go out and everybody comes back with a player's handbook. And it's all about selling more books. So I get it. Yeah. It was just weird where they're well, why don't you just reprint the ones you already have made? You've made 2. So
we have Fandelver, right? Because we haven't mentioned what the first one was. Fandelver.
Yeah, Lost Mines of Fandelver. Or Lost Mine. I always put an S on it. I think everybody
Lost
does.
Mine of Fandelver. And then we had the second one is called
Dragons of Icespire Peak,
which I thought sounded cool and read cool. I bought it. It's on my shelf. And then now this one is, did you put it in the notes? Yeah, no, that's the...
No, it's not in the notes, but it's on the link, and it's called Dragons of Shipwreck Isle.
Dragons of Shipwreck Isle. So I like that they're putting dragons into the starter set. I think that's good. We know that they've admitted that Lost Mines of Fandelver was pretty good, but they knew they could do better, and they wanted to do better because that's why they made the second one. And I wonder if there's anything in the third one that addresses something else they hadn't addressed yet. maybe it's easier to translate into multiple languages, or maybe it's got some of the new rules that we're looking at, some of the new errata stuff.
Well, and that's what I wanted to
baked
know.
in.
Yeah, like what new functionality is in this that would make you buy this over something else? Other than it's like the newest one, but I don't know.
Now they are good adventures.
No, yes, they are. And if it's a Chris Perkins adventure, I would be very interested because I love the adventures that he writes. So I don't know. And that's the thing, is we don't know anything, but it was this Hasbro thing of like, hey, and it's funny because it's right next to like Monopoly Bridgerton on the picture here on Reddit.
Right.
And I bought my wife Jurassic Park Monopoly the other day.
I
bought Jurassic Park Monopoly for Christmas, and we finally broke it open on Valentine's Day and played a game of Jurassic Park Monopoly. So fun. Yeah. Monopoly is her favorite board game, so she was like, and Jurassic Park's her favorite movie, so it was a lot of fun. But it got me thinking about the brand of D&D. Like right now, they're putting D&D into other board games. Like we had D&D
Monopoly.
Clue, I think they made D&D Clue. When are we going to have other properties into D&D? So it's going to be, but like Monopoly Bridgerton, but it's D&D Pride and Prejudice. Like, is that
D&D
ever going to happen,
set.
do you think?
I think they get overboard on their licensing of stuff to other IPs, or letting other IPs kind of use some of their stuff in their formats at some point during their life cycle. Then they almost go overboard and it gets flooded, and then all of a sudden I think they're stuck with a lot of terrible products that are out there on the market, that because they should never have let this plushy company do their thing, or this board company they shouldn't have done it. But then they rein it in, they go quiet for a while, and then it starts that whole cycle again where, hey, it's more popular again.
Yeah.
Hey, let's have books. Let's have lunch pails. Let's have T-shirts. Let's have dice sets. Let's have, let's do a Monopoly game. I think that would be a fantastic D&D Monopoly game. Would be fun, where the board is just, Baldur's Gate or, water deep, and you're doing all the, cool things around water deep.
The Jurassic Park one introduced some new things where there's a T-Rex that goes around the board that chases you. And if it catches up to you, then you have to pay $50 or something. But I was like, nice. I don't know. But yeah, actually, they just pointed out in chat, like they've already done Stranger Things D&D and Rick and Morty D&D. Yes. So that is something we're already seeing, where they're like taking D&D as like a game and then applying a franchise over it. Speaking of Dragons of Shipwreck Isle, I tried to research this. I couldn't find if that was a place in the Forgotten Realms, but RPG DMCA says that it's like the Northmen, who are seafaring people, parts of the Moonshae Isles. So an unexplored region of 5e D&D could be pretty cool. So
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I'm waiting to see that it gets confirmed, because we haven't really seen what's the next thing after the Critical Role book.
They have a box art and stuff. It's totally confirmed. It's like, they literally on this picture have the whole starter set like laid out.
Well, I guess confirmed.
I mean, from Hasbro, but like we don't have a date, obviously. Like Wizards of the Coast hasn't. I guess
is what I'm waiting to see. Yeah. Or that we get information on it, or they're promoting it more than somebody found it in a presentation for a board meeting or something, I guess is where I was going. I want to go back to one thing, though. I thought it was funny because somehow I remember the show before Valentine's Day, we said the board game Monopoly, and then within hours I see on Twitter you have a picture of Monopoly on there. I'm just like, how's that? We've never said Monopoly before. Here we are.
Yeah.
Jordan's playing the game all of a sudden.
Maybe it was in my mind as a joke or something. It
was really weird.
So we've been extremely busy since Christmas, even before Christmas. And Valentine's Day was like one of the few days that we had like both off together. So we're like, oh, we should do something when the baby's asleep. And I have been teasing her for a while that she hasn't actually opened the Jurassic Park Monopoly I got her for Christmas. So she's like, well, we're playing Monopoly. So we opened it up, and it was fun.
Very cool. So that was pretty fun. But going back to what we are, I'm excited to. I like the starter sets. I've bought A couple of them. I even think the Stranger Things ones was introduced as a starter set. It was basically as,
and Rick and Morty, I think, was too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of cool. I think I like having them because I'm a fan of the IP. I don't think everybody has to run out and buy these. If you already are into D&D or you have one of them already, you're probably good enough. But if you're a collector and you like the box art and you like the little things, sometimes they put little cool things in there that I find fun for a game too for new people. Like they might put cards in there or some pre-generated characters that are nice, or they might put in status cards so that you can hand out, oh, you've been restrained, here's your little thing that tells you what that is because you're brand new and you don't necessarily know. They have those kind of cool things, or even things that you might use if you have maybe a young nephew or a young niece, a daughter, a son, a grandkid that you want to teach, and then maybe they're in that 9 to 15 range, and you're like, here's some stuff that helps them learn the game, which is always the one thing I want to do in my lifetime is introduce, and it sounds super creepy, but introduce teenage kids or young adult kids to D&D, because that was one of the coolest things in my life. I want to be that for somebody else too, but not in a creepy way.
yeah, for sure. The less creepy, the better. That is kind of high for a starter set. So Anna in chat said that she found there was a business release by Hasbro that says it's going to be $50, this starter set.
Oh, yeah.
The previous ones have all been like 30-ish or 40-ish, I think.
That's probably a better price.
So, I don't know. I'm curious. It's weird. I bought the first starter set and then I read it, but I never did anything with it. And I eventually gave it away to my nephew because I'm like, here, I'm into D&D. You should also be D&D. So I gave him that and a bunch of minis that WizKids sent me and stuff. And I was like, here you go. And then I never picked up Icespire Peaks, and I don't feel the need to pick up this one, but I don't know. And I am kind of the collector, but at the same time, I don't know. It's hard when I look at that and I'm like, I don't think I'm actually ever going to use that.
Yeah.
As I gesture broadly to all of the books that I never used that stand behind me, but here you go.
Yeah. I like the idea of gifting it away. I like the idea of having it, but then gifting it to somebody you know.
Which is probably what it's aimed for. So it might be this summer, it might be Christmas, who knows? But the fact that they're talking about it, it's probably coming out. Calamity of the Netherdeep. Call of the Netherdeep. Calamity is one of the videos that they talked about. So Call of the Netherdeep is the new Critical Role book that they're doing a tie-in with Wizards of the Coast. They're jointly creating this, set in the world of Exandria. And I caught a few videos where they were talking about things. Mr. Todd was interviewing Mr. Matt in what looks like an apartment or something. There's like a fridge behind him. I was like, okay, he just kind of invited him over. I will say, Todd Kenrick getting way better at YouTube this turn around. His D&D Beyond videos were kind of just like casual interview kind of stuff, and maybe it's the fact that he has Matt Mercer, but like I watched the D&D YouTube channel and I'm like, how well are you doing? And all of a sudden he's got a couple videos that have been up for like a day at 50 or 60K, and I'm like, all right, that's way better than me, so there you go.
yeah good job.
It's doing good. But two videos that I thought were interesting is they talked about the Calamity, which is the big god world-ending event thing that happened many years ago in Exandria. And if you're a lore person, it's like, I find that interesting. And they talked about a city called Bezozan. And did you watch any of these?
I have watched a couple because they have put about 4 or 5 out to really kind of start advertising that it's about to come out. Yeah. They've got Matt talking about it. They had Chris Perkins talking about it. But I did not see the second one. I saw the first one, Calamity, but not the second one.
So I want to... This is really creative. I thought this was really cool. So Bezozan is a... it was like an ancient something way back in the day. So there's runes. There's like you underground caverns and dungeons and stuff. And so these archaeologists go and they start like looking for stuff, but all of a sudden like monsters come spilling out, and they realize that this is like a connection to some weird place, and it periodically like sends forth just danger and things like that. So in Bezozan, it started as like an archaeological dig site, has now turned into a military kind of like big thing,
containment,
but not to keep people out, to keep the things in. And I thought that was really cool. And they talk about that there's sirens, and it made me think of your silly siren in your community, where they're like, yeah, you're just like sleeping or you're doing this, and all of a sudden, woo, and you're like, oh, we got a monster alert, and like monsters are gonna come shooting out. And anyway, it's a simple idea, but I thought it was really clever.
Yeah,
and
I'm
curious how they're going to utilize this. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I've read a couple of books where that has kind of been a premise of a town that's on a frontier, and it's pushed as far into the frontier as it can. But the thing that has stopped it is a monster wave that seems to come. It's sort of random, but sort of so often that they can't just continue to expand. And the story kind of takes place as things are happening. Oh, the sirens are going, though. Everything's got to stop because everybody has to get on the walls because the big monster wave's coming. They got to stop that, and then they go back. And the thing is, the waves keep changing and seem to be trying to adapt to what the defenders are doing. And so the story is kind of a little bit about that. And it always reminds me of like the Starship Troopers scene of the bugs coming to the walls and the Marines are up on the, just trying to hold the line. I just kind of love those things. So that is kind of a cool and fun. It'd be interesting to have your adventurers visit that area or have some reason to be there for that. That sounds like a really cool moment in a campaign to have, or even a campaign thread that they're dealing with something like that.
Or what? Like, what if you're, I don't know how, but now I was like, what if you're on the other side and you're just like, we got to get out of here, but you don't really know where you are. And then you're trying to get out, but the people on the other side are like, we're not going to be fooled by you, monsters. We're not letting you out. And you're like, no, literally,
no.
Like, I'm here to help you, but there are like a ton of mind flares behind me. You got to open this door. Yeah. I just think that's really
I like
fun.
that idea.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, exactly. And so you're just like, how did we get here? I don't know. And you got to figure it out.
Well, I know one of the ideas that I had wrote down in our notes for the cliff, which again, I wish we come up with the name that kills all names eventually, was the idea that up from below over the cliff and then swarms the town comes a wave of creatures, and it happens like I was thinking it happened like once every 2 years or something, just enough that they could rebuild everything, but they always had this fear that it was coming again, and it was like this big wash of monstrous creatures.
Or every like
aberration,
120 years, so it's just long enough that people think that it doesn't actually happen.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
And then like it happens again. That's kind of cool.
So I thought that'd be kind of a cool way to take also the idea of our vertical,
hex crawl.
Hex crawl.
I love it.
Very cool. So that is cool. That makes me a little bit more interested in Netherdeep.
I wasn't super interested.
Yeah, that's a little better. I like that.
We'll see what the book comes out with.
Are you getting Netherdeep? Is that a book going on your shelf?
No, I didn't get the first Critical Role book either, but I'll have it on D&D Beyond, so I'll probably read through it, and we'll see. I don't know.
What do you think of the classes in there? I haven't really dived into the new stuff, but there's some cool names to the stuff.
They're like updating the Blood Hunter.
There's like a Moon Cleric I thought I saw. There's
that's like the Blood Hunter would be like the whole new class, but yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
There's I don't know, and I don't know if it's going to be included now that I say that out loud. I read that there was an update to it, and I kind of assumed that it was going to be because of this book, but maybe not. But no, I actually haven't read much of the extra stuff. I didn't like the subclasses in the first Critical Role book. The chronologic, like the time mage, or I don't know what it was called. Chronologist?
Chronomancer?
No, it wasn't Chronomancer. It was something like that. But no, the wizard subclass, and there was a couple others that didn't really like spark my fancy, but that is to each their own. Like, if I was more involved in the world, I'm sure I'd be like, oh my gosh, I can finally play this. Like, how cool. So, but we talk about it all the time. Like, part of the fun is I'm like, how do I make Spider-Man in 5e? And so when I'm like coming up with a character concept, I usually don't want here's how to play the exact thing that you want to play. I like to reflavor it in certain ways. So
yeah, I'm ready to be a gunslinger in a D&D game.
That's my next character.
Watching the Critical Role.
Yeah. We didn't talk about this, but DM Nathan's going to make a game, and we're all talking about new characters, and he wants it to be like dark and gritty, and he's going to approve all of the spells we choose. So whether it's like allowed in this game or not, because of the direction he wants to go with it. And I'm going to be a artificer that has 2 wands, and I'm going to be a gunslinger. I'm really excited.
Nice. That sounds fun.
Yeah. So
did you watch the last 3 are out? The finale is out for Critical Role.
It's all done. Season 1.
Vox Machina. Did you watch the whole thing?
No. Same thing. They come out on Friday. Yeah. I'm always very busy, and I did not watch it. Yeah. I am caught up though. Like, I just need to watch the final 3. So
that's
and I'm really liking it. Like, it's good. Like, I'm totally invested in this story. I want to go back and listen because I think I was kind of like wishy-washy about it at the beginning, and I take it all back. Like, this is a really cool show. Like, it's.
I feel like it just got stronger. I just feel like it starts a little off, or maybe not as good as I wanted. But you know, who am I? But they get stronger and stronger and better, and I couldn't even ask for more. I couldn't even critique, hey, I wish you'd have done this, by the time you're getting to like episode 5, 6, 7 and moving on.
Yeah.
It's just good. It's a good storyline. It's a cool, good villains, like you said. Strong villains. Villains you inspire you to make your villains better in your campaign. I could see you watching that and going, oh, my bad guy's nowhere near as cool as that. I need to up my game. I need to get my bad guy really into this.
Yeah.
I need a cool story, tragic story behind the bad guy,
Dunamancer, people are correcting me.
Thank you.
And then Anna does make a point. There was that fighter, I think it was like an Echo Knight or something, and you could like have a shadow version of yourself in the first Critical Role book. And that was kind of cool, now that I think about it. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
She's making all kinds of points in your chat there. Look out.
Anna, you're hired. Good job.
Anna, good job.
So that's on my to-watch list. I'll probably watch it tonight. I'm halfway through a video. It's been so long since I've uploaded a video to YouTube, so thank you for being so patient. But life just got crazy. I am really excited about this, though. It's on the plains of Eberron, which are very different from the Great Wheel cosmology, and it should be a fun video. But back to news before I just start talking about all of my stuff. Hasbro, one of the Hasbro investors wants Wizards of the Coast to separate from its own company, to be its own company. And I thought this was interesting. Apparently, all of their shareholders can bring options to the table. So this particular shareholder owns 2.5% stock of Hasbro, which is doesn't sound like a lot, but it probably it probably
that seems
is.
Like a lot.
Like, I don't know. I don't know money. This is why I'm poor. But they're obligated to like discuss it and vote, I guess, because of their whatever Hasbro bylaws and blah blah blah. So who knows if this will happen? But I did find it interesting. I looked up some numbers that this last year, 2021, 71% of all of Hasbro's revenue was made by Wizards of the Coast. So there's a little ground to stand on where you're like, maybe Wizards of the Coast should like be its own company, and Hasbro could like that would force Hasbro to make their toy line more profitable is kind of the only way I can think about it. Would you like that? Do you think it's like good or bad being tied to Hasbro? Like, they seem to just be doing whatever they want. Like, they're not really like, oh, Hasbro's keeping us under thumb, Yeah,
I don't feel like I've ever noticed them hint or say we couldn't do something because Hasbro won't let us.
Yeah,
I feel like they just have free reign to do whatever they want. So if they're not there, I don't know. And you have a direct line to a toy line if you want to actually utilize it. Although they haven't really utilized it.
They do have that life-size statue of Drist for like $4,000.
There you go. But they could have a whole toy line.
We only have to sell
of
3
DD.
to make a profit. No.
Or Vox Machina figures at this point. I could see some action figures coming out of that.
Yeah,
I mean, is Hasbro still in the action figure business?
Well, Vox Machina is making some
board games.
They're making minis of all of the characters from the TV show.
That makes sense.
But I don't even think that's through WizKids. I think they're just doing it. Like, they're big enough now. So, but yeah, I will point out that the head of Wizards of the Coast just became the CEO of Hasbro. So it doesn't really make sense for them to be like, yeah, now that I'm over here, like, go, like, I think they'll want to keep their most profitable thing.
Yeah. I could see a Wizards of the Coast person saying maybe we should be our own company, but I couldn't imagine anybody in Hasbro saying
it's probably
we should
like,
let them go. 71% of our business, let's let them go.
Yeah, it's probably one of those, like, if you let me... Yeah. Or if you let them split up, then you're going to have to buy out these shares, and I can get shares at this price, and then Wizards of the Coast will blow up, and I'll make money. It's all maybe money stuff. That's probably what it is. So who knows? I just thought it was curious. It really doesn't. It doesn't affect our hobby in the slightest. Like
no.
Like the like we have the Open GL. The more I think about this, like we have the Open Gaming license and things like that. Like, Wizards could burn down tomorrow with all of their notes gone, and we would still have a version of 5e going forward that people would make and refine and play, and so
for sure,
it's just interesting. So,
very cool.
This is a fun article. It's called D&D's Lore Struggle. I added this kind of late. Friend Lex of the show, Lex Mandrake, he sent me this. And it was published a couple days ago, I guess, on the 16th. And it just asks the question, like, what does D&D struggle with lore? Like, what's going on here with their lore? And it kind of goes into a lot of the problems that they've had through the TSR years and through the Wizards of the Coast years. And really showcases, like, they've never really pinned down what they want to do with, like, a cohesive lore. And so the big problems that you run in is, originally Gary Gygax was like, well, we don't need to provide a world for them to play in because they'll make their own. That's what I do. And that mistake is that Gary thought everyone will play D&D exactly how I play D&D. And so later on, they were like, maybe we'll buy this Forgotten Realms from this Greenwood guy, and maybe we'll do this, and I don't know, let's come up with some other stuff, Planescape, Spelljammer, and they hired some world builders to create some cool stuff. But specifically, the Forgotten Realms is just like a cohesive mess of a thing. And Planescape and other stuff have relatively been kind of like left, not unchanged, but like they're kind of just, I don't know. They're always going to stand there. They don't need a lot of, like, what happened in, 1541 on the plane of Acheron or something. Like, we don't really know. Time has no meaning there, kind of a thing like that. And the article goes into talking about 4E, where Wizards got rid of a lot of their world-building people because they wanted to focus on, like, game design and game things like that. And it's like, well, we don't really need a world. And they use the spell plague to destroy the Forgotten Realms to really just say, well, we're just going to start here. And that blew up, and everyone hated that kind of a thing because you're like, you've just nullified all of these years of lore. And then they just did it again in 5e by saying that, well, the 5e version of Forgotten Realms none of the other stuff is canon. So it's only this. And it's like, well, what? That doesn't make any sense. And so people are upset because people like this. Like, how often, I mean, I'm thinking about, like, Game of Thrones and stuff. Like, so many people are reading those books and trying to extrapolate histories and, like, I don't know, like, world building is important to the people that really like it. And this article was interesting because it's just a big mess. And they're like, what are they going to do going forward? And I don't know.
See, I think I'm going to completely disagree with the writer.
Oh, good. And I want to know this because I wanted to know your thoughts, basically. Like, do you totally think it's disagree. A big mess?
And I think you pointed out the exact reason I think the writer is wrong is because nobody should be thinking of Dungeons & Dragons lore as George R.R. Martin's Game of Thrones, because it's not a game that was, we have a world and then we're going to build a game and everything about this is we're gaming in this world. D&D always was, we have a game and you build your own world. So they're more like a comic book company who brings in artists and designers and people that have their own ideas, and they create all these different worlds using the rules. And they want always, year after year, want to showcase more people doing that. So they gave Greenwood his own world. They gave, Keith his world. They gave Monty Cook his free reign for his world stuff that he brought in. You know, the people that did Dark Sun, the main writers of that, they brought that in. So to me, Wizards of the Coast was more of like a Marvel or a DC, and less like a novel writing company where it's just a novel and we're focused on one franchise of a novel, and the game is secondary to that. The Game of Thrones is Game of Thrones. It's George R.R. Martin, and it's super cohesive because that's what George R.R. Martin is as a novelist. So to me, I don't think it's a right comparison. I think it's a wrong comparison. I think they should think of it more of like how Marvel and DC think of their worlds. They smash their worlds together when they want to redo them. They create all kinds of anomalies that shouldn't happen. When one comic book writer says Captain America does this, and this other one says, well, in my storyline I want him to do this, and now there's nerds on the internet arguing how could Captain America have done that if they, so they get that because in that context, Marvel lets you build lots of different worlds and have brought the multiverse in to allow their comic book artists to build worlds. And I think that's what Wizards was trying to do this year, was to get multiverse out there so they could stop saying if we mess something up or we change something in Ed Greenwood's version of, Forgotten Realms, it's no big deal. Nobody has to get upset about it. Because we have these other worlds, we have Eberron, we have we have Mercer's world now, we have all these things that officially come from them. So I think that would be the way I would go.
Yeah, and I do agree. I see what you're saying, but equating it back to DC and Marvel is interesting because he does that in the article as well. But I'm trying to. I had a really good point and I just lost it. But the people that are arguing on the internet, in a non-positive way, I guess, like we'll say,
that agree with the premise that they are struggling with story. Right?
Sorry, talking about comic books. So the people that are like, I can't believe Captain America would do this, and da da da. Like there's a lot of arguing because you have an idea, but that's about a character, not so much like. If I think that Wizards has handled specifically like the realms and maybe even some of the other source books that they've put out incorrectly, in the sense that they didn't start from the beginning and say, here's like a tangent line of destiny and we're going to talk about the realms in this light. Like I would love a setting where they're like, here's the Forgotten Realms, or maybe the 5th edition realms are, there was a big war with the Drow and the Drow won. And here's what the realms looks like with that. Like, that would be really cool to take a point that we all know about the history and take it in a different direction. I feel like that's what a lot of comic writers are doing. They're like, there's a point in time that they change, or it's an alternate reality, or, something like that. What Wizards of the Coast has done is this backtrack, hard reset, oh, that didn't work, oh, fans are upset. Very akin to the DC movie universe, where they're like making movies and then they're like, yeah, but we're also going to make this Justice League movie. Well, there's a Snyder cut now. Let's make Joker. Well, does that Joker movie fit in with the rest of us? Who cares? I don't know. Let's just make it. And so fans are disconnected because they like the lore. They want to see this overarching story, i.e. Marvel did it very well, and DC is not doing it very well. And I read this article thinking exactly that, where I'm just like, no, we're the DC of stories now, in a sense, where it's like, it's so fragmented and there are things that writers do that are not tying back to earlier things because there isn't somebody overseeing a whole project. There isn't a Kevin Feige. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was interesting, I guess. And not to say that Marvel doesn't have mistakes. I'm sure it does, and things like that. Especially the Marvel DC or the Marvel universe, cinematic universe. It's just, there's a clear non-direction where I think they got rid of a lot of their lore world builders, and they hired very good writers to write adventures, but those adventures are not, solidified. And to go back to your point, like, you're right, a lot of dungeon masters do create their own worlds and things like that. And that was one of the arguments that Wizards put out, saying like, well, we don't need to create all this lore because people just take what they want anyway. And it's like, you're right, but there are people like me that absorb a whole bunch And I still take the things that I want, but it's nice that there's this like standard, like here's the ground level, and now I kind of pick and choose, rather than like here's a fragmented mess of puzzle pieces, and you kind of have to, I guess, like, well, that doesn't actually fit, and you're struggling as a dungeon master. So I would argue that it helps you to have like a canonical hard set of lore to then change and manipulate.
Yeah, see, and I think it's the idea of they've continued to follow let the creator at that time who's building that world kind of run the world. But when that creator's gone, the next creator that's coming in does whatever their world is, and it's not the same. We're not hiring that person to continue Greyhawk, because if that's what you were saying, then what would make these people happy, right? The arguers would be that, well, we had Greyhawk in the 80s, that was Dungeons and Dragons, and Wizards of the Coast always tried to maintain the Greyhawk timeline, and they let other artists and people come in and talk about it and do stuff with it, but we kept the Greyhawk timeline till now. And I just never thought that in D&D was like that, because you always saw so many different designers being hired after 4 or 5 years and then just flipping the script completely on new campaign worlds. In my mind, it always was Greyhawk was Gygax. He could create the timeline. Everybody else could do whatever they wanted, but his timeline was his timeline. Ed Greenwood really is the Forgotten Realms father, even though lots of other people have done stuff with it, but he's kind of the guy for that. And then R.A. Salvatore kind of decided to do stuff in that world. Yeah. Right. But took something that made it so he kind of owns the Underdark. Yeah. Could do the canon part of it with, I'm pretty sure, Ed's, eternal, like, sure, do it. Yeah, go write your story. That's awesome. And then we get Monty, because when Monty Cook was there, we were getting really different campaign kind of stuff too. That's when we got the Planescapes and the more weird kind of stuff, and with the Birthrights out there and all these other ones. So to me, I always thought it was creator driven, and when the creator was gone, we could, and that was my complaint, was that Chris Perkins and the team right now haven't created their own. Exactly, they never let. They got rid of all the world builders. Create. They're still doing Ed's world, right? So I'd love to see them do their
Eberron,
own.
But I guess that was just one book, and
they just keep doing
Van Richten's Guide, which is one book, and so
yeah. So I feel like right now is when they fell out of what they grew up and were, which were let a certain artist create the base, and everybody kind of helps with that.
Well, and in this article, I want to quote right here because I feel like it sums up exactly what we're talking about. But it says, Wizards is doing their best right now to avoid establishing canon and lore, and at the same time they're trying to cash in on name recognition of established fan bases for old campaign settings. So it's like, here's Chult, here's Ravenloft, here's Eberron, and it's like, but are you doing them justice? And they're like, if you really are interested, go buy all those third edition Eberron books. They have a lot more interest, and you're like, well, yeah, you're right, but the whole point is we wanted to see what would you do with a 5th edition Ravenloft, like Domains of Dread. And I thought what we got was like pretty okay, but it's really just I could run this quick adventure here. It doesn't really establish how it all fits together, and so.
Yeah, I don't know if we're in the days where we would get 6 Ravenloft books. Yeah. 5 Dark Sun 5e books, 10 Spelljammer 5e books. I don't think they're into that anymore. Maybe they will come back to that, or it'll circle around to something like that in the future. But yeah, I just don't think. And to me, I still feel like they're pushing more about build your own world, or take our world, but really mash it up, do whatever you want with it. I think they're gonna, unless you have to do what we're writing.
No, I think it's Critical Role now, and they're like, you know what, Critical Role, you make all the canon, you make all the established lore. And I with this book, now that they're doing 2 books with Critical Role, I really think that they're like, well, we'll just, like, they can be the new
We think Tal'Dorei could be the official D&D campaign world? That is a strong statement, sir.
I don't think Critical Role will allow that, but I think it will be a prominent one. So, Exandria, at least.
Interesting
because
premise.
He can make all of those decisions. Matt can. Like you said, I guess he's the new Gygax, the new, but Matt's never going to let go of that world
But he has the
Ed
problem
did,
that others... he has the problem that if you're too specific, then too many people will say, I like his world, I like his ideas, but I can't run a game in that world. If you leave it vague, like Greyhawk was left vague with Gary Gygax, it's easy for you to say, well, that's what he did, but I can do this other thing because it wasn't so stringent. But if you get so into the weeds, and I know you love lore, so I'm arguing to the wrong guy. You're the lore guy. I want the lore. You want 50 books of lore for Forgotten Realms. You want the Encyclopedia, Britannica of Forgotten. And I would read that.
On CD.
I would read the entire
Encyclopedia Britannica Forgotten Realms on CD. Thank you.
I would totally do that. I get it, but I don't know if that's what they want to do.
No, it is.
I would buy it.
Yeah.
And I would read all that because I think it would be fascinatingly interesting. But
it's kind of I guess I'm just sad because the mentality now is like, let's make a book and then toss it to the DMs Guild. And in a way, that's awesome because Keith Baker's been making Eberron content for the DMs Guild. It's not like officially sanctioned, but it's Keith Baker, and I love it, and it's his interpretation of the world, and it really expands on an Eberron game. But at the same time, all of these people contributing to the realms is kind of like hit or miss, and you have to really know. I'll go one more.
I think Keith Baker is making Eberron better and better and better because he's continuing to write about it and support it and add to it, whereas I think Wizards of the Coast is not doing anything great with Forgotten Realms because we've not done anything new. It's not like they've gone anywhere we haven't been yet in Forgotten Realms. There's continents, there's land masses that they put on maps for years and years and years. We haven't been to the Red Wizards of Thay. How could they have not done that? We haven't been to Myth Draenor in forever. We haven't been to all these other cool places that you could bring up, in that, and they just never developed that world. I feel like they completely have underdeveloped Forgotten Realms. I feel bad because I think Forgotten Realms could be stronger had they put more effort into it.
Yes, and I think that's the entire point of that article.
But I don't think that's what they want to do, and I don't think that's what they think their company should do. I think that's what I want, but that's not what they want to do.
Yeah.
I want George R. R. Martin writing Forgotten Realms because we would get this huge, intricate world, or Robert Jordan, or any of these guys that wrote those 10 books, Brandon Sanderson.
There you go, bringing out the Sanderson.
Make a D&D world for us. If he got hired, he'd make like a 30-volume set because that guy loves to write to your heart's content.
Gary says Greenwood just released a Thay supplement on the DMs Guild, so.
I did hear something was going out on...
He's been writing for it because I got his Borderlands... into the Borderlands.
Good for Greenwood. So. I hope he's inspired.
He's like Keith. Like he's like, well, I don't own this world. I want my world. Yeah, they're like, I don't own this world, but I still love it. And Keith Baker has said like the fact that he's always loved Eberron, but there comes a point where he's like, I can't put all of my time into it if I'm not getting some kind of financial return. And I completely understand and sympathize. And he's like, with the DMs Guild, I now can. And so now they're testing the waters. Like, he's like, I want to write a whole book about, the undersea culture of blah, blah, blah. Will that sell? I don't know. So that kind of pushes me in a direction of like, do enough people want this that it will sell on the DMs Guild? Because he's like, I could write about it for days. Like, I'll write forever, but we need to know that people are interested in this. And that was with his Exploring Eberron. Did a whole bunch of information on the planes and things like that. I've been reading it like crazy lately, so I don't know. So kind of interesting. I'm with you, though. I also want them to create a new setting utilizing all of these mechanics that for 5th edition, and like a place for Dragonborn that is completely different from anything else, a place for Tieflings that is completely different, but that they're in the world. I would love to see that, and maybe for the 50th anniversary we'll get something like that. But
they've hinted that they were going to let Chris Perkins and the team do something like that. They've hinted that on the horizon was a new campaign that had never been done before, which would be, their chance to put their mark on, if I'm creating the world, we're getting Jeremy Crawford and Chris Perkins going back and talking and coming up with something. I would love to see what that would be, because I think they're very creative people that have done a pretty good job working in other people's IPs and the things they love. But I'd also love to see what they could do when given free reign. I'd love that. I'd buy it. They should do it.
Sweet. I think we've talked ad nauseum about that, so we'll just move on. I have not been playing any games, but I have been reading lots of Eberron books. I reread Rising from the Last War cover to cover, minus the monsters. But it's been a long time since I've just sat down and like read through a whole D&D book like that. And so much cool information in there. And now I'm reading Exploring Eberron and enjoying that. The other secret news on the horizon is there has been lots of talk for my Rod of Seven Parts crew, the Banana Bunch, as they are known, to get back together. They all want to continue those characters and play again. And so I said, well, let's work on some dates. And we're going to try and pick up that campaign. And the only thing I told them is I said, you've been stuck in Sigil for 2 years. What have you been doing? Like, you've tried to leave, but you can't. So what kind of a life have you made for yourself in Sigil? And we're going to play with those characters again. I think it'll be fun. That won't be anytime soon. It'll probably be April or May, maybe. So, but we've been talking about it. A lot of fun. But I'm curious about the player versus player adventures of Sir Lucian in Dungeon of the Mad Mage. What's going on with you?
God. Oh, it was, I feel like, and let me say up front, I think Danimal did a great job. My Dungeon Master, I do not want to discourage anything that he decided to do or wanted to do or tried to do to keep it fun and keep it so that it wasn't overly competitive. We have some real kind of alpha competitive people, and they were doing a lot of trash talking. So sometimes if you play, I mean, you've played board games sometimes with a very competitive person, and all of a sudden it's not a fun night when, the competitive people are really going at it. Because you have the people that are there just to talk and kind of play the game, but they're also just there to socialize. And then you have the person who's like, no, I'm winning Monopoly tonight, and I will cut your throat to win it tonight. I will do anything.
3 hours later, you flip over the board game. You're like, I'm done, Grandma. I'm tired of this toxic house.
Yeah, nobody plays Monopoly ever again. It's like, and then you have the Monopoly incident that nobody wants to talk about, and it gets brought. So he did a good job of making sure it didn't turn into something like that. So that's the preface. And it just sucked. I hated the whole thing. It was terrible.
Sad.
But
what made it terrible? Can you go into details or no?
And it's a personal terrible. I think others were having fun or did have fun. And I don't think it was anybody's fault. It was terrible for me, and I didn't like it. And it was mostly because, once again, I have a character that's built to certain strengths. And then when you confine them into such a small area, none of my strengths for that character can be useful.
Right.
So it falls. I'm a arcane archer who is supposed to be kind of like a Quigley Down Under sniper from hundreds yards away, can't see, built all this stuff around this idea of being out of sight all the time and being at extreme ranges, like a ranger character. And I think a lot of dungeon masters do this to their ranger characters. So this is a cautionary tale. If you have a person that builds that sniper-like character, you don't have to do it all the time, but at least give them moments to shine. Don't build all your table maps 40 by 40. Don't draw out on your table and then invite them over, and then every map, their bow, everybody can shoot everybody. Their bow range makes no difference in the game at all. When normally you could shoot somebody from 300 yards away, before they would even be able to do anything. Or how you handle nighttime. Or if your bard has built to do diplomacy and you build a game where there's never diplomacy, there's not even one moment for them to shine with that character diplomatically, you know, in some cool fashion.
That's when I talk to
then
my
you're doing
DM
a
and
disservice.
I took the wrong thing for this game.
Yeah. So that was, to me, that's what it was. The map was super small. The line of sights were, you know, so narrow that my character never would have had a way to really shine in the way I built it. And so I just, you know, I played and I just, you know, we went through it. And I just felt like it was just a throwaway night, really. It was like one of those, why are we even doing this? We could just be playing regular session. And it really stemmed from a couple of the players that were kind of heckling each other, I think. And so it was more fun maybe for those two characters to kind of battle each other out or get their groups into a battle. But the rest of us weren't really invested in a throwdown with the other group. So we didn't get invested like that.
Do you think it would be more fun if it wasn't you creating a character? Like if you were handed, like if it was a free-for-all of monsters. Like if I handed you a monster, you're like, you're going to be a green dragon. This person's going to be like 12 owlbears. I don't know.
And it was closely balanced like a MOBA or a regular arena game that people put in, then yes. But we were level 11s fighting level 13, 14s.
Oh, yeah.
In an arena, and their characters had crazy magic item stuff. We have some of that, but I wouldn't have put it on par with some of the magic they brought to the table. Plus, they have level 13, 14 abilities, and my guy's a 7/4, not even really an 11. It's more like a multi-class character, so you're not really like an 11. I wasn't playing like an 11th level archer, which is not very good in D&D no matter how you build it. But even then, I was still playing a 7/4, so it was like 7 fighter cleric. So that was trying to fight a level 14 warlock. You're just outclassed completely. There's your big brother grabbing little brother's arm and saying, "Why are you hitting yourself? Why are you hitting yourself? You know, you got nothing you can do." So in that context, it's just what. Now, if we're playing pre-made characters that are balanced and everybody has similar stuff, could be different, but it's balanced enough that ranges are the same, people are moving the same speeds, people can do similar stuff, then I think that's a fun thing you could do, because then it's just about tactics or good rolls, you know, or how you maneuvered or how you work together as a team, and that's what it's about. But in this case, it was so unbalanced. It was just like throwing out, you know, an unbalanced game, which I don't think is fun when you're trying to be competitive or PvP.
No, if it's one-sided, then it's just kind of like, well, if I didn't have a way to win, then why am I here? It kind of makes me remember everything comes back to Penny Arcade, I feel, but when Mike Krahulik got into Warhammer, they were doing a lot of things where he'd show, and there was a comic where he showed up and he's just like, here's my army. And then he looks at the other person's army and it's like way more expensive units. Like this guy's put like thousands of dollars into his army and miniatures. And he's just like, oh, wow, you have that. And then the end comic is like, do you want to just call it now, before they even start playing? And they like shake hands like, good game. Yeah, man, that was a lot of fun. So they never actually played because he knew he would just lose. And so, I sympathize with you.
Yeah.
And you're right. The game is not designed for that. D&D is designed for you to battle monsters and mostly win if you are strategic enough. And that's the whole point. Like, D&D punishes you for making bad decisions, not necessarily bad dice rolls in a way.
And I'll throw one that you just said it, the perfect thing. The D20 is too swingy for a PvP game like that. We had a bunch of bad rolls on our side, and it was just like icing on the crap cake, right? Because maybe you could have done something, but then everybody rolled like shit, so then there's no way you can do anything.
Now I gotta use that expletive hashtag on our podcast.
Yeah, so it was terrible, and it wasn't anybody's fault. It's just what happens, right? So you got to be careful about it, and I think. I don't even know if I would have had fun even had he built the map much bigger. I don't know if it would have been more fun in some other context, because it just didn't. Maybe we were all the same level. I don't know if it would have been any more fun. D&D is not a game built for play PvP. And you have a DM who normally has a story in mind. He's running characters through adventure. He's kind of a part of the storytelling, and so can make things happen or adjust things to make them more fun or challenging. But in a PvP game, he's not allowed to do that, right? Because he can't be seen as, well, let me adjust it so this group can do a little better because I see what's happening.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not going to be fun at all. Let me adjust the challenge over here so it is. They can't do that. They have to be the referee. They have to try to decide the rules. Now, the one thing he did do, if you're going to do it, and you think, nope, Lucian, you're crazy. I think PvP is fun. I think it can be done. I played it, and we had a blast, and we do it every Friday night. For that person, here's my part of the side of it. I think you can if you put a lot of effort into it. And the one thing Danimal did that worked well is he knew all of our characters because he'd been playing us through these campaigns. He knew what our abilities did. He understands how they work. So when they started to interact with each other, he had a good idea of what would happen when those interactions would happen because he's very familiar with the characters that have been playing for the last year with these characters. It would have been a horrible thing had we all built brand new characters, came to the table, and Danimal would have had to been thinking, what's that ability do? I hadn't heard that ability yet. I haven't read that one. Let me think about what that one does, and have to make those kinds of decisions on the fly without being familiar with the character.
Yeah.
I think that would have been a nightmare for him. Another thing, it was like maybe 1 or 2 rounds of combat before it was completely over, and it took nearly 3 hours or more to play. So if you're going to do a PvP game, realize it's going to take a long time. Don't add anything else into it because the combat is going to take forever. And the other thing that annoyed me, and it was on my team's part, that super annoyed me the whole night, is they're constantly typing to each other, hey, this is what you should do on your turn. And then it would get to their turn, and they hadn't even thought about what they should be doing. Oh. And then they would take 5 minutes before they would make their decision on what they were going to do. And that bugged me. And that was on my own group. That may not happen in your group. That may not be a thing for anybody else. But it annoyed the hell out of me on my own group to be like, hey, when you're not playing, it's not your turn, think about what your turn is going to be. Because this is already so long. We need to keep this thing moving.
Yeah.
We need to keep going. Think about your turn and stop typing to me about what I should do on my turn. You know? So so to me, it was annoying and I didn't have any fun really doing it. If they did, or some of the other people did, that's cool. I mean, maybe they liked it. I don't think I would run it. And if I did a PvP, I think I would only do one-on-ones to try to find some way to do a balance and find some way to make it so that both people could have fun. I don't think I would do a team 5-on-4 or 6-on-6. That's just way too much. I think that's a big hassle in this game.
Well, there you go.
Would you do it?
No. Would I do PvP?
Have you done it? Have you pitted your players against each other?
I think we've talked about this once. I did an evil mirror where my players saw their reflections and then evil versions of them stepped out. But I controlled the evil versions, and then I would just go to the player and I'd be like, okay, evil Stephanie is attacking evil James. Evil Stephanie, do you have like a really cool spell? And she'd be like, I've got this. Okay, yeah, you're going to use that. And it was kind of, because I didn't have their characters memorized, but right. It was fun. And that was fun. Mostly it was hilarious because they all went to their doppelganger and was trying to fight them, but you're equally matched with your doppelganger.
True.
And they didn't start winning until they separated and was like, okay, I'm actually going to like ranged go after the wizard. You should probably take the monk. And like once they split up, they started winning. But it was funny for them to realize like, wow, I'm evenly matched with the exact duplicate of my character. Yeah. Weird. So
that's good. That sounds super
but
fun. And I think
it's cool. Just not the game for that. Go play Hero Forge or I don't know, something that's a little more
has rules based for it.
Yeah. So okay, well, there you go. Anything else you want to talk about?
I have been playing a lot of games because the month of February has been a ton of cool games have dropped. I'm playing Lost Ark, which has been
That's right. We were making fun of you for that. Apparently it's not good, but like you like it?
It's really good.
Okay,
I think
it's
a
really
lot
good.
of people like it.
Okay.
It's huge out there, I think, right now.
That's awesome.
I like that. Warhammer 3 just dropped, Total War Warhammer 3 to play that game, nice. So you get all your Warhammer fix in. Tiny Tina's coming up here in a few weeks. We had just all these games. We're playing Rainbow Six Extraction. We're playing all these different stuff. It's like I don't have enough time to play everything. I'm like sad because I can't jump into everything. But it's been really good. So this has been a busy month of fun game playing. There's lots of stuff out there if you're looking around. You have like a Game Pass or a thing like that. Like the that one with Eloy is the main character, and she's like the barbarian in the futuristic dinosaur
Horizon Zero
world.
Dawn or whatever.
No, somebody in chat will know what I'm talking about. Eloy's the main character. She's like carries a bow, but it's like a futuristic bow, but she also looks kind of like a barbarian. Goes around and fights robot dinosaurs. Come on, chat. Save me. Save me. It's the second game. They released the first one, and it was really, on PlayStation, really good. And then I'm trying to find it real quick. It's been all over Twitter. They were talking about it. Just released. Nobody knows what I'm talking about?
I have no idea. I guessed Horizon Zero Dawn. That's the only thing I can think of.
Oh, yeah, Horizon Zero Dawn. Sorry, if you said that. Oh, I didn't hear that's what you said.
I was like, it sounds like Horizon Zero Dawn, maybe?
That is it.
Okay.
Everybody's been really talking about that game, too, because that just dropped and released. I thought that looks really good.
Oh, that's too funny. Yeah, the Steam Deck's coming out in 6 days. It's going to get officially released, and I've been watching that like a hawk. Really excited about that.
Are you going to get one?
I have a pre-order in.
Oh, but do you get it in 6 days? Or
I
do you
get it in probably 6 months, because I'm at the end of Q2 is where I am in the wait list. So.
All right, very cool.
But,
also, Paizo news for our Paizo fans.
Yeah, Zris is waiting.
Quick. Yeah, exactly. The Dead Are Rising, coming in March. The Book of the Dead. Looks really good. I think it's a Pathfinder 2nd edition book. I think a lot of people have loved the artwork. We've been anticipating it quite a bit, and it looks really good. And Paizo's been talking about it on their Twitter quite a bit this last couple of weeks because it comes in March.
Very cool.
So I'm looking forward to it. It looks really good.
I love it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's our show. We will be back next week with more talk show news. There's probably going to be more Call of the Netherdeep, and we'll see what kind of fallout has happened with Lucian and his gaming group as he picks up the broken pieces of a PvP. We'll see what goes on there.
And more Horizon Forbidden West next week.
Yes, Forbidden West.
That's the name of it.
Is the name of the game. Bangarang.
Yes, go get it. Sounds good.
But yeah, we'll be back with next week with more stuff to talk about. Feel free to share this video with your friend, talk up the podcast, do all that other cool stuff, and we'll see you again next week with another episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show. Goodbye.
Bye.